Welcome to This Week with Ajaz Haque. It is Saturday, the 18th of July 2020. In today's video, we'll cover a number of issues. The Prime Minister of Pakistan kicks off the construction of Bhasha Dam, a much delayed project which was conceived more than 40 years ago. The question is the Kalabagh Dam next? China and Iran are about to sign a $400 billion treaty for China to invest in Iran and for Iran to supply China with reduced price oil for the next 25 years. We'll talk about the fallout from this. Pakistan opened Wagah border for the Afghan-India trade. It begs the question, why not for Pakistan-India trade? The US elections, we'll cover that and the latest polls, and the COVID situation, which has taken a turn for the worst in the United States, and finally a roundup of the financial markets. Now, Bhasha Dam project was conceived 40 years ago, and various governments have been dilly-dallying, and finally a contract was signed about 3-4 months ago with a Chinese and a Pakistani consortium. And a couple of days ago, the Prime Minister kicked off the construction. So this is one of the largest dams ever to be built in Pakistan. It's a concrete-filled dam, one of the tallest dams in the world. It will provide 4,500 megawatt electricity, and it will store 8 million acres of water. So it will control the floods and also provide a water resource during the winter months when the water supply is low. If dams are that important, the question is, then why not the Kalabagh Dam? The site of the Kalabagh Dam on Indus River is at Kalabagh near Mianwali. The proposal was in the early 70s, and in 1979 there was a serious thinking about it, but following the execution of former Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, the whole thing fell apart. The Sindh province went against it as a protest. KPK was already against it for reasons of their own, because if the Kalabagh Dam was built in Punjab, then KPK will get no royalties. But now that two major dams are being built in KPK, the Bhasha and the Moman Dam, so the royalty issue no longer should be relevant. Why it is important to build the Kalabagh Dam? Because we are losing a lot of water, and in the low water season, there's shortage of water affecting our food security. It's important that we control the flow of water, so these dams will store sufficient water for the farmers in the winter months so that it can be regulated better. Balochistan, which is the largest province in Pakistan land-wise, needs to be supplied water so it can start becoming green and start producing food. So the construction of Kalabagh Dam will be vital both for all four provinces. Now, the issues that the provinces have, the federal government needs to sit down with the provinces and maybe create a new commission which will then listen to the concerns of the provinces and resolve those provinces. Everyone knows that it's essential to build these dams, even Sindh province and KPK province. Therefore, if there's a fair distribution of water for all, and if there's a constant flow of water, then I think it will probably be acceptable to everyone. Now, the benefits from Kalabagh Dam, it will produce 3,600 megawatt cheap electricity, as opposed to the imported fuel-based electricity that Pakistan is currently producing. And it will store 6.1 million acres of water. There was a study done by NUST, the University in Islamabad, in 2014, and the conclusion was that Kalabagh Dam will save $4 billion a year in energy costs, and it will save 132 billion rupees in the food for agriculture. The project costs will be, according to this study, will be repaid in 8 to 9 years. So it's absolutely essential that Pakistan looks after its interests, and the central government, federal government, needs to resolve issues with all provinces in order to build this dam. Also, flooding is a serious problem in Pakistan during the monsoon season. So once these dams are in place, all excess water will be stored in their reservoirs, and then in low water season, that water can be released to the farmers. Next, the China-Iran proposed agreement, which is about to be signed at $400 billion investment agreement by China. Compare this to CPAC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is a $65 billion agreement. So Iran stands to benefit, whereas US stands to lose because of their unilateral policy towards Iran. Now, China is securing 25-year supply of oil at very discounted prices, and this provides Iran security, the financial security against the sanctions. Now, the fallout from this is that India and Iran were to jointly build a train line from Chabahar port to Zahedan and then on to Afghanistan. The idea was that the goods shipped from India will be offloaded onto the train at Chabahar port and then shipped to Afghanistan. But Iran has now decided to exclude India from the railway venture. So Iran has already started building the railway line on their own. This is a major setback for the Indian foreign policy. It remains to be seen if the relationship between Iran and India will remain intact for the running of operation of the Chabahar port. Iran has indicated that they would like to join CPAC. I guess the Chinese influence now is considerable. Now, the Wagah border, Pakistan opened the Wagah border for Afghan-India trade. So the trucks are moving back and forth. They come from India to go to Afghanistan and vice versa. It begs the question, why not open it for the Pakistan-India trade? Why are the two countries so angry at each other that they cannot do trade while they are opening their borders for a third country? So it needs to be examined and examined very clearly. It's time to put an end to the hostilities between Pakistan and India and start trade and improve the overall security situation between the two countries. Now, the US elections, as per Financial Times, Joe Biden is well ahead of Donald Trump, but they've produced a very interesting analysis. US has a very weird system election where the president is elected indirectly. So the public elects delegates, 538 delegates in all, and then those delegates vote for the president. But the delegates are committed, so once it's known who the delegate is standing for, then they have to vote for that candidate. So the candidate who wins the election needs to have at least 270 delegates. According to Financial Times analysis, Biden already has 198 committed delegates, and there are 110 leaning his way, so a total of 308 if all the leaning candidates do not change their loyalties. Donald Trump has 115 committed candidates and 17 leaning his way, so 132 in all. So he has a large gap to fill. There are 98 uncommitted delegates. So if all of those 98 vote for Donald Trump, he still doesn't make the numbers, but then some of the ones who are leaning for Biden, if they lean to Trump, only then can Trump win. So it's a very interesting situation. And mind you, the opinion polls tend to be just that, and they tend to change. You remember in the last election, they had almost given victory to Hillary Clinton, and then Donald Trump won in the end. Now on the COVID situation, and before I go into that, a very dear friend of the family, Nadeem Mumtaz, a scion of the post-partition family in Lahore, and the owner of Fazluddin and Sons, passed away this week. May he rest in peace. Now, the situation in the United States, and he passed away from coronavirus, by the way. The situation in the United States is that the reported cases are increasing in a very large number. In the last 24 hours, 75,000 new cases were reported, which has never happened before. The overall situation now in US is there are 36.8 million reported cases, 10.8 million recoveries and 141,000 deaths. In Pakistan, there are 262,000 reported cases and 198,500 recoveries with 5,500 deaths. Now, in Pakistan, in the last few days, the ratio of reported cases to recoveries is 1 to 4, i.e. for one new reported case, there are 4 that have recovered. So the curve is actually now coming down quite sharply, and hopefully at some point it comes down to the 0 and there are no further cases. In India, the total number of cases are 1 million, and in fact the cases in India are also spiking. There were 35,000 cases just one day. The deaths in India have been around 26,000 so far. So hopefully India can control the situation. There are lockdowns in various places, including Goa. And finally, wrap up the financial markets. S&P 500 was up 1.2% on the week. Nasdaq up -1%. FTSE was up 3.2%. Hang Seng was down 2.5%. Mumbai Sensex was up 1.2%. And Shanghai was down 5.2%. Pakistan Stock Exchange PSX was up 3.1%. That's all for the week. Thank you very much. Look forward to talking to you next week. Have a nice weekend and have a nice week. Thank you.